Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
What's up, Knight fans? Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. My name is Jeff Sharon, alongside Eric Lopez. And, wow, we are jam-packed in this show, Eric, aren't we?
We do. We got championships to talk about, clinching championships, big UCF events going on, and, we also have a spring game.
Yeah. Oh, by the way. So we got lots to talk about. We had two guests in this podcast. It's great. We have Emily Marron, head coach of UCF Women's Golf, coming off of their victory in the American Athletic Conference Championships in Palm Coast in dramatic fashion. Came down to the 54th hole, at least the individual championship did. They come back from down a stroke as a team to heading into the final round to win it. And then we also talk with Hali Oughton from the American Digital Network, who is running all over the place here in the Sunshine State. Covering golf and tennis championships are happening down at the National Tennis Complex in Lake Nona, and then men's golf after that. And it's a busy time for Hali, but it's a good time to talk to her because she's got the lowdown on what's going on with the Americans. So lots to get to in this show. Don't forget to follow us at UCF_Banneret. Follow me at Jeff_Sharon. And follow Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. You can hit us up on Facebook. Just search Black and Gold Banneret. Also, don't forget to go to blackandgoldbanneret.com. Sign up for email updates whenever we post a new article or a podcast. You can also download this podcast if you have not already. Give us a rating, by the way. iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and TuneIn Radio. So, all right, Eric, let's get started. Women's golf. We are leading with women's golf. The Knights coming off a weekend where at the Bryan National in Greensboro, North Carolina, where they finished 11th. They go to the American Championship. First after day one, they're up by as many as 15 strokes on day two, and then the bottom falls out on Monday in day two. And they're trailing by one stroke heading into the final round. In the final round, UCF battles back on the back nine and eventually overtakes Houston and SMU. And then we come down to the 54th and final hole as the final group is coming in. Ashley Holder, UCF senior leader, is there. She was in the final group. She's rolling through the final few holes. Finally takes the lead, takes a one-stroke lead. She pars the final hole to win the individual championship. UCF by then had basically clinched the team championship by some 5 strokes. And UCF are the champions of the American Athletic Conference for the second time in 3 years. It's Emily Marron's second championship. They won it back in 2015. And a big win for UCF. Here's what UCF did on that final hole. And due credit to Emily Marron and her players. They clinch in one shot the team championship for women's golf and a spot in the NCAAs. The individual championship with Ashley Holder winning the individual title by one stroke. And they clinched the war on I-4 because they finished higher than USF and took the 6 points in women's golf. How about that?
It's not a bad couple days, right? Not a bad way to spend your time. Tremendous. I mean, what a way to say.
Always be closing, huh?
And they can always be saying that women's golf was the sport that clinched the championship in the war on I-4, win the championship in the conference in dramatic fashion. I mean, it's remarkable and a tremendous credit. And it's it's certainly a memorable one for that group. I think they won't forget anytime soon.
Proud for Ashley Holder as a senior, her final AAC tournament. She clinches the championship. The Knights had 7 birdies on the back 9, 3 of them from her, including a big one on a big birdie on 13. She was trailing Leonie Harm of Houston by 1 stroke, but then all of a sudden on the 13th she took the lead. So congrats to the entire UCF women's golf team and their head coach, Emily Marron, whom I had the distinct pleasure of speaking with earlier today. We recorded this on Thursday, April the 20th, and the Knights coming off of their championship. Emily was kind enough to join us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. So here is our interview with UCF head women's golf coach, Emily Marron. And joining me now is head coach Emily Marron of UCF, fresh off of her 2nd American Athletic Conference title. Coach, congratulations. How you feeling?
Oh, I feel great. Thank you so much for having me.
So let's start with the tournament. You had you come into after the first. You lead by 1 after the first round. You are down 1 stroke as a team heading into the 3rd and final round. What did you tell your players before they went to bed that night about what they had to do in the final round?
Yeah, that's probably the most popular question in the last couple of days. And the funny part about college golf is they don't know that. They don't know that we had this big lead and we lost it at the turn on the second day. The coaches know that, but as players, they didn't really know. They just know how they're playing. And so I just kind of kept it positive and said, we're playing really well, and that they just needed to be prepared tomorrow for it to be close, and it would come down to those last couple holes, and just to stay calm and fight through it.
So I'm always interested in this dynamic. Now I covered college golf at UCF, about 10 years ago, and went to a couple of tournaments out there, and I was always interested in that dynamic. How, as a coach, what's going on, where everyone is, and I was watching as I was watching the final hole. I saw you alongside Ashley Holder, and there was sort of. Do you sort of get the feeling that, like, okay, I can't tell her too much because that might mess everything up? How do you balance that as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely just want to keep them calm, relaxed. I would say probably 90% of coaching is just, chit-chatting with them, just like a caddy would on the PGA or LPGA tour. You're just out there to keep them relaxed. And, some of them will ask, how's the team doing? And I know which players actually want to know the truth and what players, you just need to say, oh, we're doing okay. But they handled it really well. A lot of them asked how we were doing, and they would say, no, we want to know. So they handled it great. I mean, that's not easy to be out there with that kind of pressure, and I was so proud of how they handled the pressure that day.
Ashley Holder brings home the individual tournament. What has she meant to your team this year?
Yeah, not only this year. I mean, Ashley from the start has just been huge for our program. She's from here in Orlando, and she really had the choice to go wherever she wanted. That's how good she was coming out of high school, and she chose to stay here at UCF, and I know it meant a lot to her to take this program to a different level. I mean, ever since she's been here, we've been a top 25 program, and I think that's what she wanted. She wanted to come here and make a difference and leave an impact, and she's certainly doing that.
How about on that 54th hole, as you guys are coming down the stretch? You're right there with her, and she has to, and her shot to the green, I was watching the tournament, looked like she kind of went middle of the green, and then she came up short, and then the other 2 golfers for Houston and SMU, they had shorter putts, but they weren't able to convert, and then she did what she had to do to par that hole. Take us through that final hole that you were with her, and how she played that final hole to clinch both the individual title and to wrap up the tournament title.
Well, yeah, my assistant coach, Steve Sims, and I kind of tag team there because I had been on hole 17, the par 3, clubbing the girls, and Steve was up ahead. So I was with Ashley on the tee shot and the second shot, and then I just told Steve, go ahead. He had been there with all the other girls. He kind of saw how the hole was playing. So he went ahead and clubbed her, and he said she was just in between clubs, and that's the type of shot you don't want to be long, because long is no good. It's in the water. So I think, having a one-shot lead, she kind of was playing safe, and it's just a really difficult green. And when she got up to the green, typically she asked me to read putts, so I went out there with her, and it was a heck of a putt. I mean, she had about a 25-foot putt that was breaking a lot. And, in that moment, you don't want to say, hey, just try to get it close, because sometimes if you say that, like you said, you say too much. So I just said, hey, just pick the right line here and just trust it. And she left herself about 7 or 8 feet. It was a little bit too far for my liking, but, again, we read the putt, and I just knew in my heart she was going to make that, and I couldn't be happier for her.
What a clutch putt that was to finish it out too. I mean, I was in my office watching the live stream on the American Digital Network, and I kind of jumped up. And I was like, yes, and everyone was like, what happened? I'm like, college golf. Don't worry about it. It was a heck of a putt. In your playing career, did you ever have a putt like that?
Boy, I can't remember. I think to qualify for the U.S. Amateur one year, I knew it was going to be – I was in a playoff, actually, my first U.S. Amateur, actually against one of my teammates at Penn State, and I had a birdie putt on the very first playoff hole to make it to go to the U.S. Amateur, and I made it. So it's an exciting feeling. I was so happy for her. And, as a coach, you're just sitting there silently saying a few prayers to yourself, and I just knew she was going to make it. She has come so close so many times, and she's been runner-up twice, and it was just her time.
Us lay people out here, we're looking at that putt. I was watching it saying, oh, my God, I'd be freaking out at this. But you've talked about, your experience as a player, and I'm sure that filters down to your players as well. Are you nervous at that point when you're standing over that putt, knowing what's on the line, or at that point are you just locked in?
I think for her, she was probably just locked in. I mean, the nerves is something you deal with all the time. I mean, whether it's the last putt or the first tee shot, and, you just work a lot on breathing techniques and just kind of reminding yourself that you've made 1,000 of these putts in practice. And again, I tell them all the time, it's just golf, it's just a game. If you make or miss this putt, we have to be willing to accept whatever happens, and, life's going to go on. It is just a game. So I preach to them all the time, what's important to me is that they're good people and they try their very best, and, just being grateful for the opportunity, and what happens. I really had a point on the back nine. I was telling my assistant coach where I just thought what's meant to be is going to be. So it just kind of calmed me a little bit to know, hey, however this is supposed to work out, I'm fine with that. So it was kind of a calming feeling.
So you guys are up to 24th in the Golf Week rankings right now, just behind Texas, ahead of Wake Forest. Next up on the docket is the NCAA Regionals, May 8th through the 10th. Site to be determined right now. Give us the lay of the land right now. What are you looking at as far as where you might be able to go? Will it be nearby? Will UCF fans be able to come see you? What's the field going to look like from your perspective for the NCAAs?
Yeah, there's 4 sites: Ohio State, Georgia, Texas Tech, or New Mexico. Those are the 4 sites.
Okay.
I've played the Ohio State course in college. I've been to Athens, Georgia. I've been to the course at New Mexico. So Texas Tech is the only one I haven't seen, but we could get sent anywhere, and we'll find out next Thursday. But for our team, I think the harder the course, the better. I think that separates teams a little bit. So we're hoping we maybe get to Georgia or Ohio State. I think those courses are tough, and we could do pretty well there.
You said after this, after the final round, you said, conference championships are special. Is this one the same, better? How is it different? How is it the same from 2015?
Like I said, they're all special because they're so rare. I mean, we get to conference championships, anything can happen, and each and every single one's special. You have a different team every year, and I was so happy for this group that, it was an up and down tournament from start to finish, and I was just so proud that they pulled it out.
Cool. Well, we're so happy that you did pull it out, too, and congratulations to you. Congratulations to the team. Best of luck come NCAA selection time, and we'll be keeping an eye on you, Coach.
All right. Thanks. We appreciate your support. Good night.
Thanks once again to Emily, and thanks to Andy Seeley for arranging this for us and getting us to have Emily on the show. Always thankful to Andy. He's the best in the business. So, wow, another conference championship for UCF. I really do think that this year, and in the Danny White era is a harbinger of things to come for. We call them the Olympic sports for UCF, but I think that if there's 2 sports that UCF can be not just really good at, but nationally dominant, it's golf and tennis, because Orlando is a golf and tennis town. Central Florida, it's golf and tennis. And we've seen success on the golf end, but, they're starting to kick it into another gear with men's and women's golf. Men's golf, by the way, the 1 seed heading into next week's American Athletic Conference tournament in Palm Harbor. And then, of course, we've talked, quite a bit this year about John Roddick and tennis. So what do you think about this? I mean, I've always thought that, these are two sports where UCF really could be nationally competitive. And now it feels like it's starting to come around, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I mean, golf certainly has been very successful. You followed it for a long time, so It's not a surprise. And even women's golf, they've had professional players go to the professionally play through the program. So, but Emily's done a heck of a job since taking over at UCF. And, I think, no question, I think there's championships with certainly golf and tennis, great opportunities. And really think about it, how it lines up, especially this year with all these championships, golf and tennis, being in the same state in Florida. Right. I mean,
that's why, because the weather elsewhere, it's not quite good enough, right? And this is the place to have it, right?
Correct. So I could see this being the norm in the future. And then, you look at the big story this week with the NCAA announcing the championship sites, and for the tennis championships 2019 and 2021 to be at that USTA Center in Lake Nona. UCF will host that. That's going to be big. That will be John Roddick's 3rd year at UCF. So, UCF, as I've said in this podcast before, I think will be a national title contender in tennis, and at least on those years, have a chance to you could do it at their own park, their own stadium to do it. That's where the journey will take them to. So, and golf, I mean, you're playing in your backyard in the state of Florida. So even if it's not your own home, if you will, where you play, but no question. I mean, I think no question from a backbone standpoint, golf and tennis, I think will definitely clean up, and I think for years, and it's going to be interesting to see how the other schools compete against UCF, and especially in this war on I-4, so much focus on the basketball and the football and all that. But, you mentioned it. I mean, UCF has a chance to clean up against UCF in golf and tennis. At the way it's going, which will be a fascinating rivalry storyline when you come to the trophy, and certainly in golf. So very, very, very big advantage for UCF moving forward. And I think the future is definitely bright.
A couple notes on stuff coming up. Women's tennis, by the way, as we're recording this on Thursday, April the 20th, women's tennis is taking place right now. The men's and women's are both taking place essentially simultaneously down in Lake Nona. Women's tennis, UCF defeated Houston in the 8-9 match 4-0 on Wednesday, but they fell today to the number 1 seed Tulsa 4-1. So UCF has been eliminated by the 1 seed Tulsa. Tulsa's pretty good. They made
a deep push. They made a deep push into the NCAA tournament last year. Did the women's team in Tulsa? In fact, they went to the, I believe, Sweet 16 last year. So that is not a surprise. Tulsa is tremendous in both men and women's tennis. So that is not a surprising result. And remember, with UCF women's tennis, first-year head coach trying to rebuild that program a little bit. So building blocks there.
Yeah. So Brian Kaneko, I want to congratulate them on a really good season. His first season, he's going to be bringing along some pretty big things too, as well for UCF women's tennis. Men's tennis, on the other hand, they get started at noon on Friday, April 21st. They are the 3 seed. John Roddick's team takes on the 6 seed Tulsa. That's a noon start down at the tennis center in Lake Nona. Winner of that match plays the winner of Tulane, the 2 seed, and Temple, the 7 seed. USF, by the way, the 1 seed in the tournament. So, that could shake out. Wouldn't that be fun, huh? War on I-4 for the American Championship would be something to see. The finals of the American Men's Tennis Championship take place Sunday. That's April 20th.
You may have to head out there if that happens.
Yeah.
Right? You may have. People have been telling you to go there. That might not be a bad time to make your debut.
That might be it. That might be the right time to do it. I'll tell you. Boy, that's going to be well. Even if it's not UCF versus USF, if it's UCF and anybody, I got to make some time to get down there. Men's golf also just wanted to mention UCF comes in as the 1 seed. Bryce Waller's crew ahead of Houston, the 2 seed, USF, the 3 seed. They get started at the Innisbrook Resort Copperhead course in Palm Harbor. That gets underway Sunday as well, Sunday, April 23rd. Night's early tee time, 8:50. Early tee time. No, the earliest tee time out there is 8 o'clock sharp for the 4, 5, and 6 teams, SMU, Cincinnati, and ECU. But UCF tees off at between 8:50 and 9:30, of course. And you do 3 golfers, 1 from each of the top 3. So yeah, that's how they're going to roll through. And round 3, final round, is Tuesday, April 25th. Again, that's down at Palm Harbor. So make sure you hit up theamerican.org for the latest information on Championship Central over there. Speaking of theamerican.org and the American Digital Network and Championship Central and all that, coming up next, our second guest of the podcast, Hali Oughton from the American Digital Network, digital reporter and just knower of all things American, is going to join us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast to talk about the tennis and golf championships and what she's got in store. So stick around. You don't want to miss that. Black and Gold Banneret Podcast with Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez. We're back after this.
Hello, Night Nation. I'm Andrew Fegley.
And I'm Trey Strelko. Where are we? This isn't our usual spot.
It looks like we've landed in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of those guys.
You know, Nightline has UCF sports covered.
Week in and week out, we bring you interviews with newsmakers and in-depth analysis of UCF sports.
Subscribe to our weekly podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to subscribe to Nightline on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at UCF_Nightline.
Trace, can we go back to the 1148 studios now and start working on our next all-new Nightline?
How do we get out of here? Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now back to you guys in the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
And welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you, continuing our coverage of the American Golf and Tennis Championships throughout this week. And one person who's there for literally all of it and crisscrossing the state of Florida is Hali Oughton. She's the digital reporter for The American. You can catch her on theamerican.org, all over Twitter, all of the Americans' Twitter handles. They have one for every sport, basically. And Hali covers everything, football, basketball. But this is certainly the time when she's at her busiest, as she's jetting between, she's got women's golf in Palm Coast, then here in Orlando, Lake Nona for tennis, then over to men's golf in Palm Harbor. So, but she was kind enough to take a few minutes out of her busy time right now to talk a little American tennis and golf. And here she is, Hali Oughton from the American Digital Network. And joining us now from the American Digital Network, she's the voice and the face of the American Athletic Conference all over the interwebs. Hali Oughton joining us. Hali, what's going on?
Hey, guys. I'm loving life down in Florida, just in full spring championship mode.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you living out of a hotel room in various locations throughout the Sunshine State? Because we got golf, we got tennis. We just had the women's golf tournament in Palm Coast. USTA National Campus in Orlando for men's, women's tennis. Then you're going over to Palm Harbor for men's golf. This is a busy 10-day trip, isn't it?
It's a long stretch. Everyone was kind of giving me a hard time. They're like, we can't even imagine how big your suitcase is. And I admit that there's actually 2 of them. So even worse than people expected.
But look at the bright side. It's all in the state of Florida. It could be worse, right?
That's true.
That's right. I had to bring all my summer options. I forget what it's like to dress in this weather, so had to bring it all.
Yeah, well, you had to dig through the closet, especially when you're coming from Providence, where it's what's the temperature in Providence right now?
I try to not look because I know it's better here, but I heard the other day it was like 45 degrees, and it's actually people in New England. I'm from California, but people in New England, they actually like switch out their clothes every season. So, and not even just like in the closet, like people put their winter stuff like in the summer, they put it under the bed and vice versa. So I was pulling out, like I had to go under the bed. It wasn't just the closet. So it was a lot of work.
When I lived up north, we used to throw them in the attic and then we'd pull them down.
There you go.
Unbelievable. So let's get started. Let's talk a little tennis and golf. Actually, we'll start a little golf. We talked with Emily Marron of UCF, fresh off her second conference championship. and UCF getting the win in rather dramatic fashion up in Palm Coast, wouldn't you say? They get the big putt on the 54th hole to win it. You were there. What were your impressions of the tournament and UCF's performance?
You know what? It was such an amazing win to witness, and especially like you just mentioned on 18. I mean, there were so many people surrounding it, and the tournament really shifted quite a bit every day. So I think just watching it all unfold, and on 18, it appeared that UCF at that point had clinched the team championship, but Ashley Holder, she had a lot of fans there rooting for her to win this one after falling short the past couple of seasons. But we thought we were going to see some extra golf there at the end. It was definitely some people holding their breaths, and I know when I talked to Ashley afterwards, I think that was a huge sigh of relief when she sunk that putt.
Yeah, and what's that like? I mean, for people that don't follow it as closely, I mean, there's two different things going on. There's the team championship, and there's the individual championships. I mean, there's a lot of things going on and to monitor. And like you mentioned, it's coming down to the wire. That's what is that like to cover a championship like that where there's all those things going on?
It's actually, I mean, it's a little bit difficult, and I really admire, I think, just the whole like team aspect of golf because, I mean, especially those first couple of days, I mean, we streamed round 3 rather on the American Digital Network, trying to give people some different looks throughout the day. But the first couple of days, you're kind of like, you're racing around the course. You're trying to figure out who's hot, who's not, and just basically following on live stats and trying to be at the right holes at the right time and figure it all out. But, as the tournament develops, you kind of know who's feeling it, who the contenders are, and you try to stick with those groups. But it's a good challenge covering an event like that. But especially for the coaches, I'm just so impressed with how they do it because they really, you can tell the coaches throughout the tournament, they tend to stick with certain players. Some players like the coaches following them and giving them advice hole to hole, and other people, the coaches show up and it makes them nervous. So the coaches really has to know the player's style. And Coach Marron definitely stuck with Ashley Holder a lot throughout this tournament. And Ashley, I think, likes having Coach with her, kind of giving her that advice and extra insight throughout the championship. So it's an interesting thing to see because coaches can't watch everything that's going on. They can't be, there's only, a couple of them. So you have 5 people out there and, they take the top 4 scores. So they have to strategically kind of place themselves.
Switching gears over. Actually, let me go back to that. I was going to say, because it is kind of chaotic. I mean, I covered a couple UCF tournaments before back in the day, and you're right. It really is just like that. But I was asking Emily about, you're coming down the 54th hole. What is going on, but your players may not. Like, how do you balance that? And she was like, I just kind of trust my players on that. And I thought that was key to UCF's victory. And now she's on her way to, or UCF rather is on their way to the NCAAs. What do you think their chances might be to fare in that once they get to the NCAA regionals?
Well, you know what? When I talked to Ashley about it after they had won the championship, it was a great tournament for her, even though she struggled a little bit on day 2. But, she told me that she really likes the way that she's been playing and, she's very confident right now. And so she knows she's been in these situations. And so she feels confident that she's able to put herself in a position to definitely compete at the highest level, both at the American tournament, but also moving forward, like you just mentioned, in the NCAAs. But I think she was overall just really proud of her team. And she just kept saying, like, this is a great confidence booster. This is great momentum heading into a regional like that, because in round 2, you sort of alluded to it, but just kind of the shifting and the turning throughout the tournament. I mean, UCF at the turn on day 2, they had a 15-stroke lead. And at that point, you're kind of like, okay, they've probably won this thing here on day 2. And then on the back 9, they just kind of, all of them as a team, they struggled and ended up going into the 3rd round a stroke behind Houston, a stroke down. So I think just the fact that they were able to not get in their heads too much and they were able to bounce back and refocus on day 3, I think that's a pretty good sign for things to come in the NCAA tournament.
Let's switch gears over. Oh, I'm sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Jeff. I was going to say, now you got to turn your attentions going from the golf championships coming down to the tennis championships. You and the crew will be covering the women's tennis championships and the men's tennis Tennis Championships. You're going to be there throughout the whole process at the new USTA Center at Lake Nona, which has been a big hype event. It's a new building. In fact, they just announced they're going to host the national championship in tennis in 2019 and 2021. And one of the storylines, UCF, a new head coach, big turnaround with John Roddick, a lot of great programs in this tennis championship that's going to have multiple teams going to the NCAA. It really sets up for an exciting weekend. Yeah,
it should be a great week. And I'm sure you guys have seen this facility right here in Orlando, but it is my first time. And I pulled up and you're just kind of like, wow, this is pretty surreal. And you walk in and you're just kind of like taken aback by just this. It's a campus of tennis courts and, amenities. And it's a really, really impressive place. But I think, it's a great place for this tournament. And it's awesome, as a fan or a reporter covering this thing, because, just like the live scoring and this, on the courts, and you can have a pretty great view from just about anywhere. But it's a lot this week. I'm like trying, every day I wake up and I'm like, okay, wait, what sport am I covering today? And I don't know what day of the week it is, but I know it's day 2 that just wrapped up of the tennis championship. So that's how I'm kind of keeping track of things right now. But the men really get going tomorrow, and women already in the semifinals tomorrow. So it's kind of a whirlwind. There's so many games or matches rather. I'm stuck in other sports. So many matches going on. But it's a very competitive tournament, and we saw some great tennis today, and it's hot, and there's teams from all over the country coming to play in this thing. So you kind of started to see the heat actually kind of have an impact today.
So UCF came up short, at least on the women's side. They fall in the quarterfinals today earlier to Tulsa. UCF was the 8 seed. Tulsa's the 1 seed. Tulsa's a good team. We knew that coming in. But over on the men's side, UCF comes in as the 3 seed. And a dramatic improvement. And men's tennis in particular for the American, a very strong sport. You have a number of teams in the top, I think 35 in the country. I think 4 teams in the top 35. UCF obviously is one of them. How do you assess the Knights' chances heading into this, what should be a very difficult and entertaining men's tournament?
Yeah, you see Tulsa as a 6 seed, but Tulsa has a great tennis tradition, and they're competitors every single year. That's a team that's used to competing in American championships, and they're used to playing in the final, and they're used to playing in the postseason. So, they have that experience, I think, behind them. But for UCF, I think, especially, you can't really ignore it. They're used to playing in this facility. They're used to playing in this weather. So I think, there's probably a little bit, maybe an advantage going into that. So, they're on their home turf here, and I think they're feeling pretty good about their season and their turnaround. And so, they're kind of a team that probably has quite a bit of confidence going into this week and maybe a new life, so to speak. So, it's interesting here, watching in the postseason, and no matter what sport you play, just the things that can happen. Today we saw a 7 seed in USF take out the 2 seed Tulane on the women's side. And that was a brutal matches all over the place going on. So anything can happen, but hey, I think UCF's got a good shot.
Give me the perspective. You have a fantastic perspective because you cover just about all of the American Conference championships. They're almost at every championship. If you're not at the championship, it's usually probably why, because you're at another championship at the same time. Whether it be so you cover the mainstream. You're at football, men's basketball, women's basketball. You mentioned, and American Digital Network covers the tennis championships, the golf championships. You're going to be back in Greenville for the softball championships. You got Clearwater for baseball. Give us that perspective. What's it like to cover all these American championships and kind of the contrast and the similarities from sport to sport?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think most of the country, at least, maybe in this profession, they'd have a big sigh once basketball season and the NCAA tournament comes to an end. And it's very deceiving for me because while I do have a little bit of a sigh after 20 games in 8 days at our American championships for the men and the women, I realize that in a couple of weeks, I'm actually going to do more traveling than I've done all year because you look at, the golfs and the tennises, the tracks, the rowing, softball, baseball. There's so many spring sports. And it is really interesting kind of getting out and, covering these Olympic sports. it's been a great learning experience for myself. I mean, I enjoy watching, all these sports on TV and especially in person and beautiful weather and whatnot, but it's a good challenge. You kind of learn some different aspects. I don't get to cover golf every day, so it's good to get out there and do some different things. But, I will say at all of our championships, it's fun because I think that while everyone's playing their different sports and, have different skill sets, just the same feeling is definitely, I would say, the same across the board when it comes to just that like competitive postseason feeling. It doesn't matter, if you're on a quiet golf course or in a packed arena, you kind of feel the nerves of the postseason and just the teams, kind of giving it all they have, because at the end, most of these situations, no matter where you're at, it's win or go home. And you have, seniors that are all in the same position, no matter what sport you play. And so I think that part of the college game is really, really cool.
And you get to wrap it up once again here in the state of Florida by heading to Innisbrook Resort in Palm Harbor for the American Men's Golf Tournament. I looked at your schedule, by the way. So we had women's golf April 16th through 18th, women's and men's tennis April 19th through the 23rd, and men's golf starts the 23rd and ends the 25th. And you're heading over to Palm Harbor for the men's golf tournament, where UCF is the 1 seed heading into that tournament. Give us a quick preview of that. What should we look for? What do you expect to see?
It's just going to be really good. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to start really focusing on men's golf on Sunday
Right.
when these two
I don't blame you one bit.
if I'm being 100% honest with you guys. But I'm going to miss round 1 of that championship because we'll be finishing up with the men's final for tennis that day. But I'll be out there for rounds 2 and 3 on Monday and Tuesday. And I'll have a whole fresh and a whole different perspective on those days. But it's going to be competitive. It's always good when you have both Florida schools in there. I think when your Florida schools, aren't good at golf, there's a problem because you have one of the best states to play golf in the whole entire country. So to see both of the Florida schools in that group is great.
Do you see? Well, are you driving over to Palm Harbor from Orlando, or are you flying over?
100%. I'm going to pack up here our coverage on Sunday. I'm going to drive through Tampa, stop and see a friend, and continue my way on to Innisbrook. And I think it's about an 1.5 to 2 hour drive from here. So, just continuing the road trip through the Sunshine State.
All right. Well, Haley on the road. The tour continues over to the West
Why don't
Coast.
we get behind? We need to get a behind the scenes there. We could get an American Digital exclusive there, like traveling with right there all throughout the state for you. We should just follow a camera with you.
It would. I don't know that it would be as exciting as you're hyping it up to be right now. It's a lot of country music and a lot of Starbucks and a lot of
taken that drive before.
Typical girl stuff going on.
I was going to say I've taken that drive before. It's awful. There's just nothing. It's just flat. There's nothing happening.
Wow!
But, I got the windows down, just soaking in life.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
Out on the open road. Cool. Well, Haley, let's tell us where we can find you online. Where can we find the stuff that you put out every day that you work so hard on, and we do appreciate it because we see where's Haley today? She's at golf, she's at tennis, she's at the basketball tournament. So where can people reach out to you? Yeah,
well, absolutely. I mean, we're a small staff, but we try to cover as much as we possibly can. I have an awesome team that works with me, and to find our stuff. theamerican.org is a great place, but I would say, we're super active on Facebook and YouTube. Those are great places where you can find all of our video content. I try to share a lot of it personally myself on Twitter, but the great thing is that all of our sports have their own Twitter handle. So American _ pretty much whatever sport you're interested in is a great place to find it. But we try to post all of our digital stuff to just about every platform we can. We know everybody's on different things, so we try to reach and cater to as many as we can. But Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere.
American _ MW Golf, I believe, is the Twitter handle, and for tennis, it's American _ 10 TENN, and of course, the American on Twitter as well. So, Haley, thank you so much for taking some time for us. Nice job racking up the frequent flyer miles. And,
there you go.
Safe travels out there, and we will catch you. I guess we'll catch you at Lake Nona through the weekend, and out at Palm Harbor for golf.
And then I'll get to see you, Eric, in Greenville.
That's right. Let me ask you about that. It's not Florida weather, but it's that'll be an exciting week for you because you'll be back at your alma mater. I don't think you've hosted a championship or covered one there yet since you've been here at the American Conference, have you?
I have not, so I'm extremely excited to head back there. And it may not be Florida weather, but Greenville doesn't usually let me down in May either. It's not too bad there. So you have first dibs on the Greenville tour, and it'll be good, I promise.
And then the next time I see you, Hali, will be at the baseball tournament in Clearwater too. So
absolutely. So a big month in May for the three of us. We got a lot of time together.
All right, Hali, thank you so much. Like we said, safe travels. We'll catch you down the road.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. Talk to you soon.
And our thanks once again to Hali for joining us here. And you can catch, again, American Digital Network, theamerican.org. Everything is there. I mean, I love the online presence that the American has. They've done a very good job, and can't say enough about the job that Hali's done. I mean, I've done this before for UCF in particular. I thought it was tough doing it for covering all these sports and all these coinciding championships for one school. She's got to cover all the schools, so she has a busy job.
Really does, and I mean she's literally been just about every American Conference championship possible. I mean she's covered the football and the basketball; those are easy, but this week, I mean. Got to do the women's golf. Then you go into tennis, and you got to do women's tennis, and then men's tennis, and then you go to men's golf. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, fortunately for her, this year, everything's in Florida, so it's not it's good consolation. But then we'll see her later on, as we mentioned on the interview. We'll be home in Greenville for the softball championships, and then she'll be in Clearwater for baseball as well. You'll be there, and I'll be there in Greenville. I might actually sweep by in Clearwater. I think I'm inspired by the interview. I got to hit up that baseball tournament. That's the one I have not hit the baseball tournament yet. And I know you covered it, worked it last year, and you said it was one of your favorite weeks.
It was an absolute blast. I had such a good time at the American Baseball Championship. Perfect place to have it is Clearwater.
You like it a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
So so I'm going to make this a proclamation, especially with the way baseball season's going. I'm going to go one of those days with you. Like you're working it. I'm just going to go I'm going to go and enjoy. I have to do that. I've been to the basketball tournament, softball. Obviously, I'll be working that for the second year. Very fortunate on that part of the great crew, the American Digital Network, and that they don't get enough credit. I've been impressed, and I'm not just saying that because I've worked in and you've worked with them, but the extensive hours of coverage. I have seen the golf coverage, for example. I mean, it starts early and it goes all the way.
I watched I watched the 54th hole live.
Yeah,
and you want to talk about drama? That was great. That was a lot of fun.
That's pretty awesome, and I think if you're every golf program and tennis program, you have to appreciate that. And I think that's just, you're right. I mean, that was cool. And it helps because what happens is word spreads. Like I know from a UCF standpoint, word started spreading. Everybody knew, a lot of UCF fans knew that if women's golf won the championship, that would clinch the trophy with USF. So people were following it. And the best way to follow it is by watching it on the stream with the digital network. I mean, that's instead of just trying to follow social media. So it was tremendous. I really do enjoy it. I'm a believer in it, and that's why I try to do the best I can to help out in my own abilities. And I know you're the same way. Yeah. Because I think it's a great cause, and it's great work and great content and great sporting events.
Yes, and they really have stepped it up too. So when you get the chance, check it out on theamerican.org. We have a bunch of friends over there who work really hard, and it's always worth it to see that. So, all right, let's flip over to baseball. UCF baseball right now standing at 27-11, and the Knights coming off of 4 consecutive wins right now. They swept East Carolina over the weekend in Greenville, nonetheless, and then defeated Bethune-Cookman at home on Tuesday, and the Knights are home this weekend for 3 against UConn on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. This is going to be a big test. We talked about how big of a test this part of the schedule was for UCF. UConn boy, are they good.
You watched, that's right. You've seen Connecticut up close.
I saw Connecticut up close. I actually did 3 of their games at the American last year when that is a good team. And boy, this is going to be. I'm glad UCF has this test at home because this is going to be tough coming in against UConn, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right, but it's going to be an exciting series. UCF's got something to play for. And look, don't snicker at that Bethune-Cookman win. Bethune-Cookman's having a heck of a year. The RPI is in the 50s. So that's actually a big win. That's a quality win. And UCF actually, depending where you look at the time of the recording, their RPI is 22, which is phenomenal. In fact, Kendall Rogers, who's the guru of college baseball, I mean, he's the go-to guy at D1Baseball.com, has UCF in his projections as a 2 seed now in the NCAA tournament in the Gainesville Regional. 2 seed, that's the big name. What that tells you is not only is this team not a bubble team, they're pretty securely in at this hour. Now, things could change, but the point is they've put themselves in position, Jeff, to play a lot of postseason games, and they put themselves with that sweep over East Carolina back in the mix in a fascinating conference championship this year. I think, you covered it last year. I think this year it's more wide open than even last year.
Yeah.
East Carolina's got their issues. They lost their closer, Ingles. Remember him? He kind of graduated. He was a dominant closer for them. East Carolina's got bullpen issues and things like that. They're at the bottom at 0-9. You got Tulane at the top, who's playing at Houston this weekend. Houston's probably on paper the best team in the league, but UCF beat that team 2 out of 3. And now you got UCF in Connecticut here playing this weekend. So this is a tremendous league that I think will get 3 bids in, maybe 4. And I think UCF here in a big weekend at home, if they could take 2 out of 3 and win the series against Connecticut, they're right in the mix for the conference championship, depending on what, so a lot of baseball to go, but the fact that we're having that conversation is tremendous. And again, credit to the guys. They had a little bit of a rough patch there, but they've overcome that. And really, we were there. We talked last week. Able to come from behind twice against East Carolina in those first two games. And I think in that last game of that series, you could tell they kind of took the will out of East Carolina when and that's what happened. And Sheridan has been phenomenal as the number 3 starter. It's just big, but you're right. Connecticut's very well coached, as you know, by a famous last name of Penders.
Yeah, Jim Penders. Yeah, who's the nephew of Tom Penders, the longtime basketball coach who never actually was a head coach at UConn, but has a number of UConn ties to his family. He actually played at UConn, played baseball and basketball at UConn. Believe it or not, Tommy did. And of course, we remember him as the head coach at Texas and later Houston, but yeah, his nephew's been highly successful as the head coach at UConn for quite some time now.
Yeah, so it's going to be a great series. We'll see what happens, and we'll see where they stand at the end of Sunday. But that's going to be a big series. Connecticut has obviously been fit to UCF, but Connecticut's right there, and this is a big series for Connecticut. Connecticut's RPI is like 54.
Yeah.
So this is a big series for Connecticut on the road. They're going to be ready because they know they could take 2 out of 3 against UCF on the road. That's quality wins against an RPI team in the 20s. So it's a huge series. It's a huge series in the league. I think it's the marquee series of the conference right now, although certainly some will argue Tulane and Houston considering they're at the top of the standings. But I think Connecticut and UCF are legit teams that have aspirations of postseason and making noise in postseason.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're able to do against UConn. UConn, of course, like we mentioned, the American champions last year in baseball. They beat Houston in the final. I saw them last year in the games that they played against Memphis, and boy, they were just all around solid. A couple guys graduated, but they still got a pretty good core coming back. So make sure you check that out as well. By the way, another UCF baseball. Oh, 2 baseball notes I wanted to mention. Quick look at the standings. By the way, UCF right now in 5th. You talked about how crazy it is, though, right now. Actually, I should say the Knights are tied for 4th with USF, both teams at 5-4 coming into this conference weekend. Houston and UConn tied for 2nd at 6-3. Tulane's at 7-2. So that's and obviously East Carolina off to a very bad start, 0-9 in the league. So that was just what the doctor ordered as far as UCF is concerned. Now they get to test their mettle against a team 1 game ahead of them in the standings. The other note I wanted to mention, this is a good one. Philadelphia Phillies called up Ben Lively on Wednesday. He got called. It's a temporary call up from AAA Lehigh Valley as he takes the place of Pat Neshek, who went on paternity leave in the Phillies bullpen. He's on the 40-man roster, so that's fine. But yeah, he's getting Ben, UCF grad. He's getting a shot at the majors. He was the Phillies organization's pitcher of the year last year. He won 18 games and recorded an ERA of 2.69 for his career in the minors. He has an ERA of 3.08, but has never pitched in relief. They're thinking he's going to pitch in relief out of the bullpen for the Phillies while he's up with the big club. But chance to show his stuff at the at the big league level. So congrats to Ben, huh?
Yeah, I mean, he well deserved. I mean, he was a great pitcher here. Watt covered him, and yeah, he's been working up that, the big league roster. I mean, Phillies have a lot of young pitchers too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been working with guys there recently, like Aaron Nola, who's a kid from LSU, among others. I mean, they got a lot of young staff there, and great to him to get a taste of it, what it's going to be like in the big leagues.
Yeah,
that'll be exciting for him. So I think, he'll do well. I think he'll do well in the long run.
By the way, one of the guys who also got called up with him, this is an interesting name, Mark Leiter Jr.
There you go.
Yeah, Mark Leiter. But those of you old baseball folk from the 90s remember Mark Leiter, who's the brother of Al Leiter, longtime pitcher for the Marlins, the Yankees, the Mets, just about everybody in between. Mark Leiter Jr. got called up as well, along with Ben Lively. So congrats to Ben and on making the big squad, and hopefully, I'm guessing that they're probably, once Neshek gets, comes back,
right,
they'll probably send Ben back down, but hopefully he won't be back down for long. I hope he gets a chance with the Phillies once again. So, by the way, for any UCF baseball news, make sure you follow our buddy Brian Murphy at spokes_Murphy on Twitter. So he's got the latest on UCF baseball, keeping track of those as the nice roll on through to in their first year under Greg Lovelady again. So big weekend series with Connecticut coming up. All right, let's flip over to softball. Eric Lopez, the latest right now on the Knights. They lost to Florida at Gainesville on Wednesday, 9-1 in 6 innings. That's pretty much expected. Florida's pretty good. So UCF softball has the weekend off because of the odd number of teams in the American.
Correct.
Couldn't have come at a better time, though, right?
Yes. I mean, I was up there in Gainesville. I called the game. And let me correct you. It's not Florida. It's number 1 ranked Florida.
Yeah, well.
All right. It's the second time this year UCF's played the number 1 ranked team in the country. They hosted Florida State earlier this year.
This schedule looks brutal looking back at it, doesn't it?
Yeah, you think? That's why sometimes records are misleading. Yes, this team's 23-20. Look at the schedule. They've played a lot of tough teams, and it's tough when you're playing, you host Florida State, they're ranked number 1, and then you go up to Gainesville about a month later, and they're number 1, and they're legit.
Louise.
So, and a lot of veterans, and that's the thing. Florida has a lot of veterans, been there, done that, especially in the pitching.
Yeah. Been there, done that, and got the hardware, too.
Exactly, and they're number 1 in the country in ERA for a reason. And, for a lot of the young players, it was the first time they played at Katie Tishu Presley Stadium, believe it or not, because of a young team. And that's a tough environment, and I think that's a learning experience. And for some of them in that roster, and, they'll be better for it moving forward from that standpoint. So, look, I think the bye week does come in. I think they're banged up a little bit. They kind of clear their heads a little bit, get ready for the stretch run with UConn senior weekend. Will be an emotional weekend every time you have seniors. And then you go to, you got Bethune on the road, and then at Tulsa, and then the conference tournament in Greenville, which, UCF's get. If you're a UCF right now, realistically, you're probably not going to catch Tulsa for the conference championship unless you get some help, even though you do finish the year at Tulsa. But it's going to be tough. But if you're UCF, if you can finish second or third, in that, that's kind of the race. If you can get second place on the opposite side of Tulsa, you can make a run into the championship and get that automatic bid. So, and you want to be fine-tuned going into that tournament. So, The Florida game was a disappointment, but let's not forget, Jeff, they beat USF again, 2 out of 3, winning that series. They've won every time they've played USF in the conference since they joined in 2014 in softball. And it's funny, for the second year in a row, Jeff, they did it in extra innings to win the series. This year was a walk-off. In fact, I'm going to pat myself here. Let's hear how I called Kira Klarkowski's heroic hit.
Roll the tape.
And Klarkowski drops one into right. That's going to drop in for a hit. Lauer's coming around to score, and the Knights win it 5-4 on a walk-off RBI hit for the freshman.
All right, there you go. As you can tell, Jeff, I almost lost my voice there, but it was a dramatic win. And Kira Klarkowski, major in criminal justice, by the way.
The judge, Kira Klarkowski.
Big win. I mean, that's a huge win, emotional series win for them against USF. And look, I mean, they're trying to make a deep run, and that was a big confidence booster. Aaliyah White pitched well in that series.
Has she been something else at this point in the year? I mean, I can't sing her praises enough because, and she had to come in some tough spots. In the second game of the series too.
Yep.
With the one that UCF lost. I mean, that's a tough. We were talking about it in the press box. You're like, man. They're going to get it. USF is going to see a lot of Aaliyah White in this weekend, and it didn't matter. She pitched really well, I thought, in the third game as well.
She has, and really, if you look at her year, remember she's a true freshman, and arguably playing the most scrutinized, other than maybe if you want to say the quarterback position on campus at football. Maybe the most scrutinized position in all of UCF athletics when you think about it, with the tradition that softball has with the great pitchers that have come from that program, going back to Dottie Cup when you were there, when the program started, Lindsey Enders, who led UCF to the 2005 East Sun Championship in Boca, which you were there, through Allison Kime, who was an all-region player and led UCF to the 08 Championship, even Ashley Cole, who you covered, which was in 2010, led him to the NCAA tournament as an at-large. Mackenzie Audis was a freshman of the year in Conference USA and led UCF to the NCAA tournaments, the all-time strikeout leader, helped UCF get to 3 NCAA tournaments, 2 conference championships, alongside her partner, Shelby Turnier, who became the first ever All-American in program history, and it's the all-time winningest pitcher in program history. My point is, a lot of great pitchers have come here, so it's a very scrutinized position. People, and she knows that. She's acknowledged it. She knows who she's following, and for her, to get to 16 wins at this time of this recording and lead the team in victories, lead them in most of the pitching categories, I think she has done very well for herself. And the future is bright for her. And the game who knows what the rest of the year will bring. But to me, the game that kind of really was the game that's kind of clinched it for me. It was that USF Thursday night game on a nationally televised scene on ESPNU, and she shut them down with 3 hits. Shut them down. You were there.
Yeah.
Very poised kid, super competitive, wants the ball, and for a freshman. In UCF, other than Mackenzie Audis' freshman year in 2012, this doesn't happen. Usually there's a veteran, a second-year pitcher, or a third-year pitcher that's leading the staff in all these categories. Other than Mackenzie Audis in 2012, this hasn't really happened. And if you take away Mackenzie Audis, this is probably the best freshman year that any pitcher in UCF softball history. Obviously, Mackenzie's got that mark, but that just tells you Aaliyah's done a heck of a job for being a freshman.
Yeah, I was just. I mean, what can you say about that first performance she had against USF? She was great. And again, I mean, the future really is bright. I think that we're kind of look back at this year and say, wow, there was a lot of things that that UCF can build upon. And it's funny. It does feel like a rebuilding year, and yet they're in second place in the league. And and that's the amazing part about it.
Yeah, they got a shot to play more and play themselves in. And,
right.
I know for a fact that next year they got a great pitcher coming in from down in the South Florida area, which, will be exciting. That will certainly, I know, talking to the staff, could be an equal right there with Aaliyah, and that could be a nice 1-2 punch like they had with Mackenzie and Shelby moving forward. And you still got Cameron Toney, the kid from Georgia. She's a freshman as well.
Boy, she's been good too.
It's been very good too. So it's a young team, and that's the thing. You got to move to the forward and let them kind of grow in their own pace. And so it'll be fascinating to see them grow. But you're right. I think this bye week comes very good for them. And they got a chance to gear up and take on Connecticut, which I think is a big series. Last home series, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So they're going to come out ready to play. How weird, by the way. They've got a bye week this weekend, but I have a softball game. I got to do USF Memphis for the digital network.
That's right.
How bizarre. Very bizarre. And also,
it's not bizarre. You know what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm working with former Knight, Allison Kine, by the way. Speaking of which, we'll be on that cool 6:30 on Saturday. So you could do a little back and forth between the tennis championships and watch the little bit of the softball there if you choose to on the digital network. But the other thing this weekend that's going on, ironically, Stetson and UNF are playing a softball series in DeLand, which will match up Shelby Turnier, who's the assistant coach in her first year at UNF, and Jessica Uvari, DP for the night. She's a volunteer coach at Stetson. So a little UCF versus UCF. Just a little added bonus there for the podcast there. Will be fun. I'm actually going to be – I'll be heading out there to see them on Sunday, actually. So that'll be fun.
Look at us, man. We got 2 UCF people calling this USF softball game. And then in the other – and then the Stetson UNF game, we got 2 more UCF people.
We're taking over.
We're everywhere. UCF is literally overtaking college softball as we speak. So that's good.
What we try.
All right, one last note before we get going. 2017 NFL regular season schedule has come out. And I thought this was of note. I wanted to pass it along. Obviously you can go to NFL.com and see all this. But couple Knights making their debuts in new uniforms this year. We talked about the first one that I'm really going to be interested in for obvious reasons is first Sunday of the season, September 10th. 8:30 p.m., Giants at Cowboys. Noteworthy not just because I'm a Giants fan, and every year we open the season at Dallas.
5th time in 6 years, by the way. Giants-Cowboys open the season.
On NBC, nonetheless. But not just that, but also Brandon Marshall making his first appearance, at least scheduled to be, as a Giant, his first regular season appearance on national TV at Dallas. So that should be fun watching him absolutely roast Dallas's porous secondary. And then in addition to that, the following night, Monday, September the 11th, ESPN's doing that opening Monday night doubleheader thing again. And the first game, Saints at Vikings, Latavius Murray making his debut as a Minnesota Viking on Monday, September 11th. Let me throw this to you, Eric Lopez. Who's going to have the better first season in their new digs? Brandon Marshall with the Giants or Latavius Murray with the Vikings?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to go with Marshall because I still have questions about the Vikings' offensive line.
Okay.
And I do worry about that for Latavius, even though I think Latavius will be the featured guy. But I'm going to say Marshall. I think Marshall still has a lot to play with. You can speak better than I can. Giants love to use a lot of 3 wide sets.
Yep.
And with Odell Beckham getting a lot of attention, I think there'll be opportunities for Brandon there.
This might be the first time in Brandon's career that he's not been double-teamed as a pro.
Right. He'll be the number 2 there. You got Sterling Shepard, the young kid, too, also be in the mix. So, talented receivers. So I would go with Brandon. Just because I think he's going to get a lot of looks there. And whereas Latavius, I do worry about that offensive line for Minnesota and where he's going to be able to run.
Yeah, some other notes also for the Jacksonville Jaguars start their season 1 p.m. on the Sunday at Houston. So hoping Blake Bortles will still be the starter there. Who knows what the draft may hold in store.
Draft next week. NFL draft.
Next week.
That'll be which Knights get drafted will be interesting to see. As always, a story. Of course, with Griffin in the mix.
Yeah, Shaquille Griffin, who showed quite well in the workouts.
Yeah. I think people are talking from what I've read and seen online and stuff, maybe a 3rd, maybe a 4th round pick, maybe. I mean, that's a possibility there. So that'll be fun to follow next week. And
certainly worth watching the third day of the draft to see where Shaquille comes through. I do think he will get drafted, and that's one thing that I'm going to be keeping an eye on with the NFL draft. I can't. Is it really next week?
Amen to that,
oh
Mike.
My
I love
God.
Look forward to it.
Oh man, where is 2017 going? All right, cool. Well, we'll be
By
on
the way,
lookout. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing before we do go, for the audience, by the way, we recommend you check out our previous podcast. We had Brandon Helwig on. We did an in-depth preview of the spring game. So for your spring game, just go to our previous podcast. We'll put it up to talk about in-depth the big questions going into the spring game. Brandon was fantastic on that. UCFsports.com does a great job, and we interviewed him in the last podcast. So get your spring game fix there. One noteworthy thing that I want you to pick your brain on that just was announced today, Thursday, that the spring game will be streamed online by UCF. They're going to stream it. Your reaction to that?
About daggone time.
The game will be 6:30, but and obviously there's a lot of events going on it, and of course baseball games at 1:00 on Saturday, so that's kind of a nice little double dip there. Right. But the game they're going to offer streaming apparently. You can watch it now, I guess, online on the UCFKnights.com on that UCF Knights TV. Which I think is a nice addition for people that have that UCF Knights TV package, don't you?
Right. I agree. I do have the package. It's great. I'm happy that they're streaming the spring game. There's always sort of that debate, I'm sure, that they had internally about why are we streaming the spring game if we're trying to get people to buy tickets to see it. But for me, the thought is, well, people are already paying for it. They're paying for the UCFKnights.tv package. So, they're already spending the money. They're in the door. So you may as well give them the product, right?
Well, and again, it's going to be on UCF Knights TV, as I understand it. And I think, so if you've got a subscription, you'll be able to watch it. So to me, it's not, that I do like that.
And also, to me, it's like if you care enough to watch the spring game online live, you're probably going to care enough to be at the spring game in person anyway.
Yeah, but you'll be surprised. There'll probably be some people that'll check it out just, because they're out of town or whatever.
Well, yeah, there's those exceptions to it. Yeah, but but like how many people are going to are going to, on Saturday sit down in front of the couch and, and crack open a cold one and be like, honey, don't bother me. I'm watching the UCF spring game tonight.
I do wonder, because, spring games get televised everywhere. Florida and Florida State are on their spring games. Like FSU was on ESPN a couple weeks back. Florida was on SEC Network, and all these schools, a lot of them. And I do wonder, if with UCF probably seeing that, streaming these games, it's not a bad thing. It's a chance to push the UCF Knights TV package. It's a chance to, get some people more attention maybe. I'm very pleased to see that direction. They're going in that direction. And by the way, Tuck and O'Neill on Friday, depending when you're listening to this podcast, on Friday, April 21st, 4:30 Eastern, Scott Frost will talk to Jerry O'Neill and Lake Tuck on the talk some spring games. So
good stuff.
Those are your football fix there for our audience there.
A little bit more insight from Scott Frost, courtesy of Eric Lopez. So that should be fun as well. So let's wrap it up here for the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Huge thanks once again to Emily Marron, head coach of the 2017 American Athletic Conference champion UCF women's golf team. Thanks also to Hali Oughton of the American Digital Network and the American Athletic Conference for joining us as our guests today. Thanks also to Andy Seeley for getting everything set up as well from UCF Athletics as well. Don't forget, you can hit up blackandgoldbanneret.com for all of the latest info on our podcast, including also Brian Murphy's baseball coverage. You can follow him on Twitter at spokes_Murphy. You can follow the Banneret as well at UCF_Banneret on Twitter. You can follow me at Jeff_Sharon, and you can follow Eric Lopez at
Eric Lopez Elo. That's where you can find me and my busy weekend, which will include hosting the Insider Show on Saturday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. from Universal Nissan at the corner of 417 and Orange Blossom Trail. I'll be calling the USF Memphis game, 6:30 Eastern from Tampa on the American Digital Network. And who knows what else I'll be doing beyond that, but you can follow me on Eric Lopez Elo to find out what else I'll be doing.
Haley was right. Yeah, just when you think basketball's over, oh, it's a breeze the rest of the way. No, it's only just getting started. You can also hit us up on Facebook at Black and Gold Banneret, and also on blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can subscribe to us via your email. Anything new that pops up, new article, new podcast, goes right to your email inbox. It's awesome. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed to us yet, you should do so via iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and TuneIn. Leave us a rating on iTunes. Send us a message. Tell us how well we're doing, what else you'd like to hear from us as well. So, once again, for Eric Lopez, my name is Jeff Sharon. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll catch you again next week.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.